Part 115. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1141. Countless demonic dragons were instantly killed by my move. I feel like the power in my body is draining away fast. The damage caused by Zivajao's move was indeed huge. I quickly unsealed the other veins. This time I directly unlocked the 4 meridians. Torrential dragon energy burst out from my body. I instantly felt full of strength again. At this moment, Zhao Mian suddenly disappeared from the same place, and when he appeared again, he was already in front of me. His speed was so fast that I didn't react at all. He raised his palm and slapped my chest hard. This palm seemed light, but it contained all of Zhao Mian's strength at this time. I was knocked upside down and flew out. My chest felt tight and my throat was fishy and sweet. Fortunately, I was protected by Zivaijao. It was also Zhao Mian's attack that made his words and spells instantly ineffective. I clutched my chest, struggled to stand up, and looked at Zhao Mian seriously. He didn't hold back at all with that slap just now. It seemed that he wanted to kill me. Since he wants to do this, then I will accompany him. Zhao Mian looked at me with a gloomy face and said, "I can't believe that your strength has reached this level. Although you are in the Sky Coffin, if I let you out, I'm afraid it will be difficult to implement my plan in the future. So, you can die here. Tian Coffin is my home court. I don't have to worry about any backlash." As soon as Zhao Mian finished speaking, a dazzling golden light erupted from his body. The next moment, Zhao Mian transformed into Yinglong and appeared in front of me. Yinglong's body is covered with golden light, and his scales are shining with folds of light under the moonlight. The pair of wings on his back are even more powerful and domineering. Roar! A dragon roar resounded throughout the world. Zhao Mian rushed towards me straight away. Those demon dragons have been injured by me before and can't do much, so now I only need to eliminate Zhao Mian before I can leave here. Looking at the huge Yinglong that was attacking, I condensed my expression, directly used Nine Eyes' heavenly domain, and disappeared in an instant. With a bang, Yinglong hit the ground hard, and the whole mountain trembled. I appeared again, on the left side of Yinglong. I took a deep breath and struck Yinglong with a sword. This sword struck Yinglong's body firmly. There was only a sonorous sound, but there was no damage on the surface of Yinglong's body. Seeing this situation, I frowned. This Yinglong's defense is really strong. The sword missed, and Yinglong's huge dragon tail swept towards me. I disappeared again, and when I appeared, I was already on top of Yinglong's head. I activated the soul-stealing blood hand, and scarlet blood instantly spread from my right arm, covering it in the blink of an eye. No matter how hard Yinglong's dragon scales are, they will definitely not be able to withstand the soul-stealing bloody hands. This is just like when you play a game. Physical attacks have no effect on armor, but soul-stealing bloody hands cause real damage. Without any hesitation, I raised Jingxiao in my hand and stabbed the dragon body under me fiercely. With a pop, the frightened sky penetrated the dragon's scales and sank straight into Yinglong's body. I didn't give Yinglong a chance to react. I squeezed the art with one hand and used the 9 layers thunder art. I superimposed the power of Leiju to the 5th level, and then transmitted it to Yinglong's body through Jingxiao. Boom! There were bursts of thunder, and powerful thunder and lightning exploded directly in Yinglong's body. Roar! Yinglong let out a miserable howl, and then took me straight into the sky. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1142. This is not the first time I have experienced this situation. Last time I killed the evil dragon at an altitude of 10,000 meters, now I have to experience it again. At this moment, the dragon scales on Yinglong's body actually emitted a black light, and then, black smoke spread from the dragon's body. This is. Before I could react, I saw countless pairs of pale ghost hands reaching out from the black mist and grabbing at me. I looked shocked. This was Zhao Mian's method. I quickly took out Jingxiao and shuttled through the hands of these ghosts. While shuttling, he also waved the Jingxiao in his hand to cut off these ghost hands. The ghost hand seems to have the ability to infinitely regenerate. No matter how hard I try to cut it off, it will grow back again. Yinglong flew towards the east, and I frowned. Zhao Mian's goal was the seal of the sky coffin. The seal of this layer of sky coffin is already weak. If Zhao Mian breaks the seal, the demon dragon inside will reappear in the world. By that time, the world will surely face an unimaginable catastrophe. I suddenly stretched out my left hand, and a white light glowed in my palm. The white light enveloped me and then gathered into the shape of a lotus flower. The pure lotus seal is the purest power in the world and can purify some evil spirits. The phantom of the white lotus appeared, and those ghostly hands did not dare to get close to me. Just when I was about to stop Yinglong, my attention was instantly attracted by the situation on the ground. I have cut off 90 of the 99 dragon veins. There are still 9 dragon veins left that have not been cut off, and now, right below where Yinglong is flying, are the remaining 9 dragon veins. Isn't this a God-given opportunity? Without any hesitation, I formed the secret with both hands and performed the dragon slaying technique. The dragon energy of the 9 dragon veins soared into the sky and gathered into the shape of a golden dragon in the air. It is no longer possible to cut off the dragon veins with the dragon diagram, so it can only be cut off in the air. Zhao Mian also discovered my purpose, and his voice rang in my ears. Lu Su, I really didn't expect that this is it. You are still thinking about these 9 dragon veins. But do you think I will let you succeed? His voice appeared out of thin air, lingering in my ears like the sound of heaven. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Mian rushed downwards. I staggered, lost my balance in an instant, and fell backward very quickly. I quickly raised the Jingxiao in my hand and inserted it into Yinglong's body like a dagger to stabilize my body. I raised my eyes and looked around, and found that Zhao Mian was taking me away from the dragon vein location. My heart trembled. This is not possible. These 9 dragon veins are the key to my defeating Zhao Mian. I took a deep breath and used the 9 eyes heavenly domain to envelop Yinglong's body. I stood up and disappeared instantly. When I reappeared, I was in front of Yinglong. I had no foothold and continued to fall. Without any hesitation, I released the dragon energy all over my body, gathered it on Jingxiao, and slashed towards the dragon vein closest to me. Dragon energy breathed out from the edge of Jingxiao's sword and cut off the dragon vein directly. The dragon energy emitted by the dragon veins was split in half by me. Instead of absorbing it, I stretched out my hand and manipulated the dragon energy to turn into a golden dragon shadow in the air again. Zhao Mian hovered in the air and watched me coldly as I fell towards the ground. I saw that Zhao Mian was about to leave the scope of the 9 eyes heavenly domain, and quickly used his ability to return to Yinglong's body again. My manipulation made Zhao Mian confused. His voice rang in my ears. 9 eyes heaven realm is indeed difficult to deal with. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1143. As long as Zhao Mian uses any method to get rid of me within the scope of the 9 eyes heavenly domain, I will return to his back. I suddenly stretched out my hand and controlled the golden dragon transformed by dragon energy to attack Zhao Mian. Although the dragon transformed by dragon energy has no physical body, the power of dragon energy is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. What's more, the dragon energy in the dragon's veins is the energy of a true dragon. Ordinary demon dragons cannot match it. The dragon transformed from dragon energy fought with Zhao Mian. Zhao Mian focused all his energy on dealing with dragon energy. I took this opportunity and swung two swords again. Two dragon veins were cut off directly by me. The next moment, dragon energy gathered, and two golden dragons flew towards Zhao Mian. Now I can only rely on the dragon energy of the dragon vein to temporarily suppress Zhao Mian. Because, only in this way can I find an opportunity to defeat it. Zhao Mian was still able to deal with the three dragons transformed by dragon veins and dragon energy with ease. This shows that Zhao Mian's strength is extraordinary. I quickly cut off the remaining 5 dragon veins, and the 9 dragons transformed from dragon energy surrounded Zhao Mian. Zhuolong attacked each other, instantly putting Zhao Mian at a disadvantage. I took this opportunity to activate my soul-stealing blood hand and grab the body of Yinglong under me. His right hand sank into Yinglong's body. I want to pull out Zhen Nu's soul, or pull out Zhao Mian's soul. Because, only in this way can I have a greater chance of winning. I carefully felt the soul inside Yinglong's body. At this moment, I felt a familiar breath. It's Zhao Mian. Without any hesitation, I directly grabbed the soul and used all my strength to pull it away. With my efforts, Zhao Mian's soul was finally extracted by me. He stood there and looked at me seriously. And Zhenu underneath her also regained control of her body. Her soul was suppressed by Zhao Mian just now, but she could still know what was happening outside. I quickly stopped the 9 golden dragons transformed by dragon energy. Zhao Mian looked at Zhang Yucheng's face and said to me, "I really didn't expect that you could force me to this point." He stretched out his hand, looked at it, and said, "If it weren't for this soul, you would have no chance of winning." Zhao Mian is right. If Zhao Mian fights me with his true body, then, I will lose miserably. Even with Zhang Yucheng's soul, I seem a little powerless. If it weren't for the help of dragon energy and the fact that the sky coffin is my home court, I'm afraid I would have lost miserably. 9 golden dragons transformed from dragon energy hovered behind me. I held Jingxiao in my hand, pointed my sword at Zhao Mian, and said, "Do you still need to continue?" Zhao Mian shrugged and replied, "It's boring, my goal has been achieved." Purpose achieved? I frowned and asked, "What did you do?" Zhao Mian raised the corners of his mouth, showing an evil smile, and said, "I can't tell you this. This Zhao Mian must have done something before me." Before I could continue to ask, Zhao Mian's soul began to split into 2. Zhao Mian appeared in front of me, and he also released his control on Zhang Yucheng. "Lu Su, you win this time, but next time, you won't have such good luck." Zhao Mian leaned back and fell directly from a height of 10,000 meters. Zhao Mian's figure slowly disappeared from my eyes, and my expression became extremely serious. What on earth did he do? At this time, Zhang Yucheng suddenly gritted his teeth and said to me, "Lu Su." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1144. I looked at Zhang Yucheng coldly and said, "Zhang Yucheng, it's time to settle the matter between you and me." Zhang Yucheng took a step back subconsciously. He said to me, "Lu Su, I feel that the two of us can have a good talk." Now Zhang Yucheng has lost all his moral character and even his body. The reason why he gritted his teeth at me just now was out of resentment towards me. But now, he has seen the facts clearly, so he asked me for peace. I looked at him coldly, pressed forward step by step, and said, "You and I have nothing to talk about. Today, no matter what Zhang Yucheng says, I will not give him another chance. If the roles were reversed, Zhang Yucheng would definitely kill me without hesitation." Zhang Yucheng's throat squirmed and he glanced at the abyss beneath him. "Lu Su, let me go, I can work as a horse for you." Before he finished speaking, I disappeared directly from the spot. Appearing again, I was already in front of Zhang Yucheng. I raised the sword in my hand and stabbed Zhang Yucheng hard in the chest. Zhang Yu's face was ashen, and his figure dissipated, turning into little stars and penetrating into my body. When everything was settled, I let out a long sigh and collapsed to the ground. This time, it was a near miss, if Lu Bowen hadn't taught me the art of killing dragons. I'm afraid this is a narrow escape. I looked at the 9 dragon energy hovering in the air, absorbed it into my body, and sealed it. Now, just think about how to get out of here. If you want to leave here, you must pass through the restriction between the sky coffin and the sky seam. I asked Genu, do you know how to get out of here? After a while, Genu's voice sounded in my ears. I seem to know, but my memory is a little fuzzy. I can take you there. I nodded. Genu flew towards the east. Being high up in the sky, I can clearly see the shape of the entire dragon island. The entire dragon island is indeed a giant dragon. Soon, we came to the place Genu mentioned. I looked up and a huge black hole appeared in front of me. The demonic dragons in the cracks in the sky ran out through here. It should be right here. I said to Genu. Genu hummed, and I continued, I'll trouble you next. Genu didn't say much and flew towards the black hole. Entering the black hole, the surroundings fell into darkness. I don't know how long it took, but several bright lights appeared in front of me. When I got closer, it turned out to be the 8-character mantra. I was overjoyed and came out of the coffin. Those demonic dragons were still hovering in the cracks in the sky, rushing towards the 8-character mantra like crazy. When they saw me and Genu appearing, they looked at me with ferocious expressions and stared at me coldly. I released the crepe myrtle energy in my body, and these demonic dragons were frightened by me. Genu broke out of the boundary of the 8-character mantra and returned to the sacred mountain. I looked around, searching for that beautiful figure. Finally, on the sacred mountain, I met the person who made my heart miss. Su Tianqian also saw me. She looked happy, stretched out her slender hand and waved to me. Genu and I landed on the sacred mountain, and Su Tianqian came to me in 3 steps at a time. She looked me up and down, and when she saw that I was fine, she breathed a long sigh of relief. Just as she was about to speak, she was pulled into my arms. I said softly, I'm back. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1145. Su Tianqian did not push me away. Instead, she hugged me tightly and pressed her pretty face against my chest. It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back. Su Tianqian murmured softly and hugged her a little tighter. It seems that Su Tianqian was very worried about me during my absence. After a while, I let go of her and looked around, but I didn't see Lu Hangxuan. I asked, where is Lu Hangxuan? Su Tianqian looked at Longmen with her beautiful eyes and said, she has already gone to jump over Longmen. It will probably take some time to come back. Hearing this news, the stone hanging in my heart dropped a bit. The primary purpose of coming to Kunlun Mountain this time was to help Lu Hangxuan jump over the Dragon Gate. Although, if Lu Hangxuan wants to transform into a real dragon, she still needs to jump through 3 dragon gates. Now that I have jumped over one door, it should not be difficult to find the other 2 doors. I looked at the sky seam and frowned. The passage between the sky coffin and the sky seam was not closed. Now I have to find a way to repair the sky coffin and seal these demonic dragons in the sky coffin again. Thinking of this, I made the formula with both hands and muttered the words. The 8-character mantra emits a dazzling light, and then slowly shrinks. Under the influence of the 8-character mantra, the seams in the sky are also slowly healing and disappearing. The demon dragons in the sky roared unwillingly. No matter how hard they struggled, they could not break free from the shackles of the 8-character mantra. In the blink of an eye, the seam in the sky disappeared, and the world returned to normal, with only the Dragon Gate standing in the mountains. Genu recovered her body and ran towards her brother. At this time, the black demon dragon has returned to human form, leaning weakly against the stone. Elder brother. Genu threw herself into the man's arms, raised her tearful eyes, and stared at the man closely, a look that lasted forever. The corners of the man's mouth raised slightly, he forced a smile and said, "I'm back." Zhennu nodded heavily. Su Tianqian held my arm and looked at the brother and sister with complicated eyes. I also found out the clues. The man's anger was like a gossamer, and his soul was slowly dissipating. It seemed that he couldn't hold on for much longer. His power comes from the sky coffin and the demonic dragons in the sky coffin. The connection between the sky coffin and the sky seam has been severed by me, so he will naturally disappear. Soon, Zhennu also discovered something strange about her brother. She shouted in shock, "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Sanji smiled and replied, "I'm fine, I just have to leave you." When Zhennu heard these words, she burst into tears. She cried heartbreakingly, like a child who has lost her most cherished thing. "Brother, how can you bear to leave me again? How many years will I have to wait for you to meet you again?" Zhennu has been waiting for too long, and now she has finally waited for her brother to come back, but, a reunion is a separation, and no one can accept this kind of thing. Sanji stretched out his hand, gently touched Zhennu's cheek, and said softly, "Sister, live well. With your identity, you will become a god and stay in the world forever, and I can only go so far." Zhennu kept shaking and making trouble, crying, "I don't want it. Become a god or something." Zhennu doesn't want it. Zhennu just wants to be with her brother. Sangji persuaded Zhennu with good words, hoping that Zhennu could concentrate on practicing and become an immortal class as soon as possible, but Zhennu was very stubborn and would not agree to it. Sanji put his eyes on me with pleading eyes. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1146. I know that he wants me to persuade Zhennu. Although I haven't been in contact with Zhennu for a long time. However, I know Zhennu will not change her mind so easily. I came to them and said, "Your brother is dying. If he is sent to the underworld now, he will still be reincarnated. If it continues to be delayed, I'm afraid. If Sanji is allowed to stay in the world any longer, he will probably be destroyed physically and mentally, and his soul will be scattered." Hearing this, Zhennu's pretty face turned pale with fright. She held her brother's hand tightly and without any hesitation, said to me, I also want to go with my brother." After hearing this, Sanji looked shocked and immediately refused, "No. You have to stay in this world and live a good life." With tears in her eyes, Zhennu shook her head slightly and replied, "I don't want it. In a world without my brother, the sky is gray. I have been waiting for too long and I don't want to wait any longer. If my brother insists on letting me stay, I won't survive in this world." Zhennu's attitude was very tough. Sanji knew his sister. He sighed longly and said in a lonely tone, "Zhennu, why can't you listen to your brother?" Su Tianqian called me aside and whispered a few words in my ear. After listening, I asked tentatively, "Is this really okay?" Su Tianqian nodded slightly and replied, "There is no better way than this at the moment." I thought over and over again and agreed with Su Tianxuan's method. I said to the two of them, "Let's do this. I will send you away together. You will go to hell together and be reincarnated together. We will still meet in the next life." Zhennu's eyes lit up and she asked in surprise, "Really?" I nodded and replied, "Really, I have a way for you to meet again in the next life. By then, you will become brothers and sisters in an ordinary family, living a peaceful life. However, you have to give up your body as a dragon and the chance of eternal life. I don't know if you are willing to do so." Zhennu fell to her knees with a plop and said to me, "I do." I looked at Sanji, he didn't speak, just lowered his head. Jenu stood up, took her brother's hand, and said softly, "Brother, I am willing to be reincarnated with you. You will not be too lonely on the road to hell. If in the next life, I can really be your sister, then, I am willing to do whatever you ask me to do." Sanji looked at Jenu with tears in his eyes, then nodded and said, "Okay, I hope we can be born in an ordinary family in the next life. By then, we won't have to endure the sufferings we have in this life." This is also the best result. Watching Sanji's body begin to dissipate, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I made the secret with both hands, activated the ghost seal, and summoned the gate to the underworld. Then, he stretched out his index finger and gently touched Jenu's forehead to separate her soul from her true body. After the souls were separated, I once again kneaded the secrets with my hands and conveyed the secret message to Xiang Yi. Only Xiang Yi can make the two people meet in the next life, because he is a ghost. As long as he uses some connections, he can make the two brothers and sisters live in the same family in the next life. Based on the relationship between Xiang Yi and me, he can't refuse. I pointed to the gate of the underworld and said, "You can go." The brother and sister held hands and walked toward the gate of the underworld, but just when Jenu was about to enter the gate of the underworld, she stopped. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1147. Jenu put her slender hand on her chest, and then a golden light was held in her hand. She spread her hands, and a golden miniature Yinglong flew in her palms. She said to me, "This is the dragon soul. I will give it to you now. This should help that sister." The sister Jenu mentioned was Lu Hangxuan. I hesitated whether to take the dragon soul from Jenu's hand. Seeing my hesitation, Jenu said, "I have decided to reincarnate. This dragon soul has no effect on me. I might as well give it to you as my repayment to you." Zhen was right, her reincarnation meant giving up her identity as Yinglong. If this is the case, then I would rather be respectful than obey your orders, and I will put away the soul of Yinglong. After Lu Hangxuan comes out of the dragon gate, handing it to her may have unexpected effects. Jenu smiled brightly at me, then bowed deeply and said, "Thank you." Then, he walked into the gate of the underworld without looking back. The gate to the underworld disappeared, and Su Tianqian and I were the only two people left on the top of the sacred mountain. I held her hand and asked, "What effect will this Yinglong soul have?" Su Tianqian thought for a while and replied, "If Lu Hangxuan can successfully absorb the soul of Yinglong, maybe she will be able to have the body of Yinglong when she transforms into a dragon. She has a dragon bone in her body, and with this dragon soul, she has a high chance of success." I nodded after listening and looked towards Longmen, not knowing when Lu Hangxuan would come out. Su Tianqian suddenly said to me, "She jumped in front of the dragon gate and told me that if you come out early, you don't have to wait for her. When the time comes, she will rely on the connection between you and her to find you." I originally thought that after Lu Hangxuan came out, the three of us would go to Yaokai together. Since everyone said so, there was no need for me to continue waiting here. I looked at Su Tianqian and said, "Then let's go." Su Tianqian shook his head slightly at me, looked into the distance with his beautiful eyes, and said, I want to see the snow-capped mountains here for a while." I was stunned for a moment, then nodded in agreement. I took off my coat and wanted to spread it on the ground to sit with Su Tianqian. But Su Tianqian grabbed my collar, stared at me with starry eyes, and said, "Don't bother me, I'm afraid you'll catch a cold." I felt warm in my heart and said, "I was worried that you would catch a cold." The corners of Su Tianxuan's mouth raised slightly, showing a sweet smile, and she said, "It's okay, I'm in good health." She insisted again and again, and I could only agree. The two of us were sitting on the floor, with some distance between me and her. I moved slightly, trying to get closer to her. However, Su Tianqian took the initiative to lean over and rest his head on my shoulder. I stretched out my hand and stopped her shoulder. I didn't speak, and she didn't speak either. The two of us just sat quietly, looking at the snowy world in the distance. After a while, Su Tianqian suddenly raised his head and looked at me. I was slightly startled and asked, "What's wrong?" Su Tianqian shook his head slightly at me and replied softly, "It's nothing." She changed the topic and asked, "Do you still remember what I said to you in Buman Mountain before?" "What?" Bei Mangshan said. I asked tentatively, "You said you should be mentally prepared in the future." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1148. Su Tianxuan's pretty face turned slightly red and she hummed softly at me. "I will do what I promised you, and. Su Tianqian hesitated and refused to say anything. "And what?" Su Tianxuan's eyes averted, her slender hands grasped the corners of her clothes and kneaded them back and forth. Her shy and squirming look was very cute. Under my gaze, Su Tianqian seemed to have made some kind of determination, put her red lips to my ear, and whispered softly. When I heard this sentence, I was stunned on the spot. I looked at her in disbelief, my body trembling slightly because of the excitement. Are you serious?" Su Tianqian turned his face to the side, then hummed and replied, "Seriously." I stretched out my hand and pulled Su Tianqian into my arms. Su Tianqian exclaimed and then fell into my arms. "Okay, I'm looking forward to that day." Su Tianqian raised her pretty face and said nothing, just looking at me with love in her eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became subtle. She slowly closed her eyes. I also knew what I should do. Everything fell into place so naturally. I pressed my lips gently on her delicate red lips. After lingering for a long time, Su Tianqian pushed me away. Her pretty face turned red and she didn't dare to look at me. She said sullenly, You're not done yet." I scratched my head awkwardly, smiled, and said, "Aren't you also?" Before Su Tianqian finished speaking, he turned around, glared at me fiercely, then stood up and walked down the mountain. I quickly chased after her and took her hand. She didn't struggle but instead hugged my shoulders affectionately. In this way, Su Tianqian and I walked down the mountain along the way we came. On the way, the blush on Su Tianxuan's face still didn't fade away. Seeing this, I wanted to tease her, so I asked, "Tianqian, didn't you like her just now? Why did you push me away?" Su Tianqian hesitated, lowered his eyes, and remained silent. When I saw this, I quickly asked. After I asked again and again, Su Tianqian pretended to be angry and said, "It's not you. It makes me a little breathless." Su Tianxuan's shy appearance can only be described as cute. I never thought that Su Tianqian, who was aloof and indifferent, would be like a little girl who fell in love for the first time, shy and coy when facing the person she loved. Just as I was about to continue asking, Su Tianqian suddenly stretched out his hand and pinched my waist fiercely. I was pinched because I was unable to dodge. I screamed and said, "Tianqian, you are too cruel." Su Tianqian said angrily, "It's not you, but you still behave when you get an advantage. It's easy to pinch you." I smiled awkwardly, and after a while, Su Tianqian suddenly asked, "Does it hurt?" I shook my head and replied, "You didn't exert any force at all, how could it hurt?" "Then you're just pretending." "It's almost. Okay. Lu Su. You know how to bully me." Su Tianqian raised his pink fist and attacked me. I dodged repeatedly. The two of them were fighting and making trouble, and they came to the ancient country of Xiangxiang. In the ancient country of Xiangxiang, there are countless ghosts. Most of these ghosts are wearing armor and are dead war spirits. They don't have much resentment, and they won't take the initiative to attack us when they see us. Su Tianqian suddenly said, "Send them away. This can be considered a meritorious deed." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1149. I looked at these fighting spirits wandering in the city. I thought the same thing. These war spirits have been lingering here for thousands of years. It would be a great merit to send them to reincarnation. I looked around, raised my voice, and said, I can send you away from here and let you reincarnate. As soon as these words came out, all the fighting spirits wandering in the city gathered towards me. Among them, a man dressed as a general walked out from among the fighting spirits. You want to send me away from here? I nodded. The general lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then said, we died because of the war, and we lived because of the war. We have caused countless killings in our lives. Even if we are reincarnated, we will not end well. Hearing this sentence, I was slightly stunned. What the ghost general in front of me said was not unreasonable. When a person dies, he will be sent to hell, and the judge will judge the yin and yang. The mistakes you have committed in this life will be recorded in the book of life and death, and then you will be sent to the 18th level of hell according to the severity to be tortured. And among these fighting spirits in front of us, which one doesn't have a few lives in its hands? Reincarnation must also go through the judgment of the underworld. I turned cold and asked, do you mean you don't want to be reincarnated? If the underworld finds you wandering here, it will definitely send some underworld agents to arrest you. By then, your soul will be scattered to pieces, which is the lowest punishment. The underworld will not tolerate ghosts lingering in the world. This will cause chaos between yin and yang. If these war spirits lose control of their emotions and leave the yin realm to massacre human beings, it will definitely cause destruction to all living beings. If they refuse to leave this world, then I don't mind sending these war spirits away myself. The ghost general looked at me, then shook his head. He knelt down on one knee, raised his hands to me and said, we all see what you did on the sacred mountain, and we are willing to make you the king. I will follow your orders and conquer all directions. The ghost general's words made me stunned for a moment. I never thought that the ghost general would say such a thing. I looked at Su Tianxian standing aside. Su Tianxian also looked a little confused, then put her red lips to my ear and whispered, take them in, it will be of great help to you. If you can lead them to perform meritorious deeds, their sins will be washed away, and when the time comes, they will be reincarnated into a good family. I nodded towards Su Tianxian. Today's underworld is a powder keg that can be ignited once a spark appears. I am inseparable from the underworld. If there is a mutiny in the underworld, I must appear. Zhang Yuchang is dead, and I am now the city god of Tianfu city god. There are hundreds of thousands of yin soldiers under his command, plus the yin soldiers in the Sea of Ghosts. It can be considered a small scale. Bamang Mountain, Jingmen City God, these are all existences that can help me at critical moments. Thinking of this, I said to all the fighting spirits, I can let you follow me, but I only have one request. You must obey my orders. If you don't listen, you will be responsible for the consequences. As soon as these words came out, all the fighting spirits present knelt down on the ground, clasped their hands in fists, and shouted at me in unison, we are willing to follow you. Seeing this, I waved my hand, and the ghost sea appeared out of thin air, and then slowly swallowed up all the fighting souls present. I looked at Su Tianxian and asked, is this really okay? Su Tianxian smiled at me, took my arm and said, you have to believe in yourself. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1150. I smiled slightly at this. Let's go, I'll take you to Yaokai. I said to Su Tianxian. Su Tianxian nodded slightly and replied, there is still some distance to go to Yaokai, so there is no rush. I looked at Su Tianqian suspiciously. After she noticed my gaze, she was slightly startled and asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I smiled and said, "Are you sure it's because we are far away and you don't want to stay with me for a while?" Two blushes quietly crept onto Su Tianxuan's fair cheeks. She glared at me fiercely and said harshly, "I didn't." I saw through it without saying anything, but sighed slightly and asked, "How long will this inheritance take?" Su Tianqian went to Yaokai to accept the inheritance. If he failed, he would be destroyed physically and mentally. This inheritance also means separation for the two of us. Although Su Tianqian would disappear from time to time before. I am also very relieved about this, but, this time is different, both of us understand each other's intentions. Moreover, this inheritance is still very dangerous for her. I must know the specific time so that I can come to Kunlun Mountain to pick her up. Su Tianqian raised her beautiful eyes, looked at me, and said, "The time will be short or very long." The specific time, I don't know either. This answer made me feel a little disappointed. "Is there any way you can notify me so that I can come and take you home?" Su Tianqian was stunned for a moment, then lowered his eyes, full of sweetness. She thought for a moment, took my hand, bit her finger, and wrote a word on my palm. I took a closer look and saw that it was the character Xian. Su Tianqian kneaded the formula with both hands and muttered something in his mouth. Soon, the red words on his palms blended into my skin. "This is Xinwen. With this word in my hand, I can feel your presence even though we are thousands of miles apart. Xinwen is a curse drawn with one's own blood as a guide and soul as a contract. The main function of this spell is to feel the presence of the other party. There are no side effects, but there are restrictions. One person can only use it once in a lifetime on one person." I also took Su Tianxuan's hand and said, "You can feel me, but I can't feel you. How unfair is this?" I bit my finger and wrote the word Su on Su Tianxuan's palm. "When I miss you in the future, you will be able to know." Then, I squeezed the secret with both hands, and the blood words blended into Su Tianxuan's skin. She looked at the word sure in her palm, her eyes full of tenderness, like autumn water. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She looked at me with scrutinizing eyes and asked, "Xiao Su, tell me the truth. Did you fall in love with other girls before you met me?" I was slightly startled and asked, "Why do you ask that?" Su Tianqian replied seriously, "Because your various behaviors show that you are very good at catching girls' hearts." Hearing this sentence, I couldn't help laughing. I said, "There is a village beauty named Xiaoqui in my village. Do you think she counts?" "Real?" Su Tianqian asked in surprise. "Fake." Su Tianqian rolled his eyes. I knew she just wanted to make me feel weak. After all, she had done this kind of thing before. I asked back, "Then what you just said is saying that you are in love with me?"